Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki, and today, for the first time ever, we get to do a playoff podcast. The Cleveland Browns have made the playoffs this season. They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers today, 24-22. It was a win, and they were in scenario, and they pulled out the win today to move to 11-5 on the season. And in fact, they will play the same Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the wild card round. But Jack, I can't believe we're finally at this point, and I'm so glad that you've co-hosted the show with me for a long, long time. And I know it's been a little bit since we've done a show, but to finally be on here with you to talk the Browns into playoffs, this is something special.
I mean, when we started this thing almost 4 years ago, I mean, there was days, Anthony, I never thought we'd see this day. I mean, everybody talked about, back to 2002, that magical season, 9-7, that game against the Falcons, run, William, run. I was 10 years old at the time, really wasn't a big football fan, so I don't remember it. And like I said, there was days I didn't think this was ever going to come. And today was the day it finally happened. And what a crazy 4 years it's been since we started this podcast. And I got to admit, like, when Baker Mayfield made that run to seal the win, I got emotional. I dropped down on one knee and I started bawling. And like, I mean, I'm still at a loss of words. I cannot believe we are here talking about the Cleveland Browns as a playoff team, and the fact that next weekend is their first playoff game in 17 years, man. It's unreal. 18 years. I'm sorry. I'm at a loss of words.
Yeah, me too. I look. I the same boat as you in terms of kind of breaking down a little bit after that run, after that game clinching, playoff clinching run. Um, and, if it had to be one guy to propel us into the playoffs, I guess it had to be Baker Mayfield, because um, you know going 0-16, having multiple number one picks over those next couple years, and then drafting the quarterback. Um, it's been a roller coaster with him a little bit so far, but to be able to go from 0-16 to the point where we are now, going 11-5 this season. A lot of people, including I guess ourselves, expected us to maybe make the playoffs last season and kind of have a similar record, but we were a year early on those predictions in terms of making the playoffs. Um, they definitely got the right head coach. They got the right quarterback. And look, I, I, I'm just at a loss for words because it's so wonderful and exciting and joyous to feel to be able to go to the playoffs next weekend. I know there's teams that do this like every year, but for a franchise that hasn't been there in 18 long years, and we could exercise some more demons next week because 18 years ago we played the Steelers in a wild card round. We were up by like 17 points in that game, and some bad stuff happened after that. But they can go into Pittsburgh again next week, and you know, exact some revenge for that game 18 years ago, and it'd be crazy to think that we could play Pittsburgh 2 weeks in a row and maybe beat the Steelers 2 weeks in a row. So, um, just what do you think? Because I know what it means to me, and I know what it means to you. But what do you think it means to the rest of uh, the best fans in the world in a dog pound? I know only if 12,000 and a little bit extra could be in attendance today at First Energy Stadium, and I know that I would love to see that place back because I would have been there too. But what do you think it means to the dog pound to finally get over that hurdle and make the playoffs this season?
I think back to a couple years ago when Buffalo finally broke their playoff drought, and I think they were on the road and they came back, and the fans were at the airport, and it was thousands and thousands. And I know what they meant because I have a good friend that's a Buffalo Bills fan. Like, you know, being a Cleveland fan, we've been picked on for so long, and I think I'm going to get emotional talking about it now. Growing up, I had all these kids I went to school with that were Pittsburgh fans. They teased me for being a Cleveland fan because, that was 2 free wins for them every year. I mean, this is our time, and the Pittsburgh fans are making their excuses now because, they didn't have Ben and they didn't have Hayward and Watt. And it doesn't matter. Like, they were locked into the playoffs. We knew that they weren't going to play a lot of their guys. I mean, they still had some key guys out there today, but a win to win, you have to. I mean, you go out there to win the game, no matter who's playing on the other side of the team or other side of the ball. There was years where Pittsburgh would roll in and they had to play Colt McCoy or whatever, or Brandon Whedon or whoever the quarterback was, but they still went in with the mindset that they had to win. So even though, like Mason Rudolph was the quarterback over there today, we knew that we had to go out still, play our best football, and go out and beat them. And, to the fans, like, they don't care how they got to the playoffs as long as they got there. 2007, I can remember because that was my first year. Like, I was a true diehard Browns fan. And, we won 10 games and we were depending on the Colts, and they started Jim Sorgi that night and they ended up losing and we didn't make the playoffs. Like, it was a good season, but we still didn't make the playoffs. Like, Anthony, if we wouldn't have made this, I would have came on here today and said, we went 10-6. It was a good year, but I would have called it a failure because we still didn't make the playoffs. Like, that's the goal every year, is to go to the playoffs and compete for a chance to go to the Super Bowl and perhaps win the Super Bowl. We're in that spot now. So I don't think, like, the fans can bicker about how it was done, but at the end of the day, we got to the playoffs, and that's all that matters.
You, you, now that we've accomplished the goal of making the playoffs, you know what the next goal is, right? The next goal is let's go win the Super Bowl.
Well, I think the first goal would to be win beat the Steelers and then beat whoever we play next and then go to the AFC Championship game. You know, like Jarvis Landry posted the video of Kobe Bryant. I think I sent it to you, but Kobe Bryant was up 2-0 in the finals, and he's like, and the media, one of the media members was like, "How are you happy?" He goes, "We're only up 2-0. The job's not over yet." Like, you still have to take it step by step. I know people are going to say, like, yeah, like you said, Super Bowl, that's the next goal. I think the next goal would be playoff win, and then another playoff win, and then you're in the AFC Championship game, and then that's the next goal. Like, we took this hurdle to get into the postseason. Now the next goal is beat Pittsburgh again, and then whoever we play next, that's the next hurdle.
There's been a mindset, and it's been echoed by Kevin Stefanski all year, and also by the players as well. They have a chance to go 1-0 next week against Pittsburgh, and it's kind of been the motto of all season for the Browns is every week they're like, there's a chance to go 1-0, there's a chance to go 1-0, and it's just been. It's been very consistent, and you can tell that that's certainly a part of their culture and a part of their mindset. It is, they focus on this week's game. They don't worry about last week. They don't worry about next week. They focus on this week. And this week, they're going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers again. What do you think it means for them to play pretty much a playoff game today against the Pittsburgh Steelers, play in that mindset to get them ready for next week when it is an actually playoff game? Because basically this week was win or go home, and it's going to be the same thing next week. So what do you think they'll be able to take experience wise from this game today, beating Pittsburgh, where they faced quite a bit of adversity? There was they didn't really turn the ball over or anything, but Pittsburgh really fought in this game, and they did a really good job, and Pittsburgh always does of always competing, and they were certainly in this game. They had a chance to tie it up there at the end with that 2-point conversion and and whatnot. But Pittsburgh always competes, and this Browns team today had to treat this game like a playoff game, and they did that. So, what do you think that means taking this experience from today into next week and absolute must win or go home in the playoffs?
I mean, and next week should be the same mindset and mentality that they had coming into this week, win or go home. And, hopefully they don't face as much adversity off the field as they did, on the field, with the Steelers rallying back in the fourth quarter. You know, what's not being talked about. You had 6 guys missing because of COVID. They had one practice all week, which was only for an hour, and they were hardly in the facility all week. They had to do a lot of their stuff virtually. They were missing Kevin or Chad O'Shea, their wide receiver coach, Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach. I mean, and they were missing key guys: Denzel Ward, B.J. Goodson, Malcolm Smith. Love him or hate him, Andrew Sendejo. I mean, we were missing a ton of depth on the defensive side of the ball, but credit to Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff. Like all year, they got the guys ready. It was a next man up mentality. Yeah, Terrence Mitchell, Robert Jackson had a tough time against the wide receivers, but it was a learning experience, and they'll be able to go watch the film, learn from their mistakes, make the correct adjustments. I have faith in this coaching staff because they have done it all year, where they have helped guys get ready and step up in big moments. And that's another thing. Like, this is a young football team, which kind of gets overlooked at times, but a young a young, hungry NFL team that's learning how to win, and they fought to get in the playoffs, and now this is another big moment for them. A lot of these guys, it's their very first playoff games. I think actually probably the majority of the roster, I would say probably 90%, have never played in a playoff game before. So this is going to be a big moment for all of them. But luckily we have guys, veterans like Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon. Hopefully he's okay. He had the ankle injury late. I think Jarvis Landry played in a playoff game, but Sendejo's valuable there. A lot of these veterans that have played in playoff games, they're going to be able to help these guys and guide them for this big week, because a lot of them have never faced this before.
You're right. This is a very young football team, and it's just going to go this experience that they have had this season, fighting through adversity, fighting through all the different challenges and obstacles that they have faced. It's just going to make this team even better going forward. I know pretty much all the NFL has done the same thing, but with a first year head coach and um, not having really an off-season program and having to do a lot of things virtually and not really having that one-on-one time, with Stefanski and his coaching staff. They managed to pull 11 wins out, and they gained some valuable experience this season. And no matter what happens next week, or even potentially the weeks after, uh, this team took a serious growth. This franchise took a giant step forward. It's been a long time since we've been able to say that this franchise has taken such a massive step. Um, because look, and I don't know if this is giving Stefanski too much credit, but if they would have picked anybody else for head coach, I don't know if uh, they would be at this spot right now in the playoffs this season, because the job that he's done, the calm, cool collectiveness that he has every week, nothing phases him, and you could tell that really translates to this team, Jack, because when I watch the Browns, nothing phases his team. I mean, I know last week against the Jets, that was kind of a different situation, but they did everything in their power with all the challenges, with all those players being out, and had to have a shot to come back and win that game last week. To kind of facing those same challenges this week with COVID. Um, it's, to me, a lot of this falls under Kevin Stefanski and the job that he's done with this team and instilling this new culture that we're certainly not used to, but it's certainly one that is going to give a lot of Browns teams in the future success.
No, I mean, I look back, Anthony, a year ago, we were, I'm pretty sure, I know I was, I don't remember if you were, but advocating for Josh McDaniels. And I will say that Kevin Stefanski was the right hire. It was, I mean, it was no doubt the right move. And not only getting him, but being able to bring Andrew Berry back. And, credit to the Haslams and J.W. Johnson for finally aligning the football operations the right way. The first, all their previous hires, they tried to mesh philosophies together, but they finally decided to align everything perfectly with Paul DePodesta, Andrew Berry, and Kevin Stefanski. And when you have everybody on the right track, years like this year, and hopefully what we see in the future is a product of everybody being on the same page. And you're right about Stefanski. Like nothing phases this dude. He's a guy like if adversity hits them, they make adjustments and they find a way to get things going. And the last few weeks with the COVID situation with the team, like I mean, it doesn't phase him. Like he just says, okay, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna adjust accordingly, and we're gonna keep rolling. Like I know a lot of people said, last week, like the Jets game should have been postponed because all the wide receivers got put on the reserve list. But it's a situation where, Stefanski just, they try to find a solution. And of course, things didn't work out last week against the Jets, but it, they haven't lost back-to-back games for a reason. Like Stefanski and the coaching staff go in and say, hey, we had a bad week. Let's go out, have a good week, and find a way to win. And that's what they've done the majority of the time. Like, some coaches in the past would have just packed it in or threw people under the bus or, called it quits when the going got tough, but not Stefanski. He seems completely different from every other coach we've had since '99. And I credit the Haslams for making the right decision to hire this guy, listening to Deep Podesta, and then also getting Andrew Berry back, who was in the organization, seeing what kind of chaos happens under their ownership. But, they made things right, and things are looking good right now after year one, and we're just hopeful that it'll continue into the future, and I think it will as long as they keep this crew together.
Let me see if you agree with this. There is no other person who Stefanski's personality resonates more with than Baker Mayfield. Like this season, we have seen such a growth from Baker, and it's because of Stefanski. His personality, the way he handles things, has completely rubbed off on Baker Mayfield, and I think you see that out there every single week.
No doubt. Like, I mean, Baker's had his moments this year where, his back's been against the wall. Like, you talk about the Baltimore game, the first Baltimore game, the first Pittsburgh game. And, there was doubt at some points. And then the Cincinnati game, it just things started clicking. And he became, like, ever since the Cincinnati game, he's thrown, what, like 2, 3 interceptions. He's been accurate. He's been making great throws. He's being a great leader. I mean, what he said post game today, he said there's a new standard now for Cleveland after going 11-5, and they clinched a playoff spot. And he said it in the post game. He was like, "We're not satisfied." He goes, "That when me and Jarvis came here a couple years ago, he goes, we set a new mindset in Cleveland, and nothing's changed." And I mean, that's great. I mean, that's what Baker even said. I think it was when OBJ got finally introduced to Cleveland. He said, "Our goal is to win Super Bowls." I mean, that was the goal. Like some years, guys will talk about winning the AFC North or winning one playoff game. Like, if you have that mindset, you're never going to work. Like the fact that Baker and Jarvis wanted to come here, change the culture, put a winning attitude in here, like, and the focus is winning Super Bowls, like, you've got the right people. And when Baker, the combine interview, and he said, if anybody's going to turn Cleveland around, it's going to be me. He was mocked by some in the local media for saying that. But what's he done since he's been here? Win, with the exception of last year. And obviously, we know what last year was, but Baker's turned this franchise around. You could see the video of him, the crowd just fully embracing him today after the game. Like, this is his town, this is his team, and the Browns will go as far as they go. It'll be because of number 6.
And on the other side of the ball, you could definitely tell that Stefanski's personality has resonated with Myles Garrett because, look, we all know what happened last year, and the amount of work that he's done in the offseason and this season to repair his image, become the Browns nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, to put out the type of season this year on the field. Um, all the different things that he's done. He is, without doubt, the leader of the defense. And with Baker, the leader of the offense, it's great to have those kinds of leaders on both sides of the ball. I don't know if you saw the some of the stuff pregame, but Myles was out there for a good 5 minutes having a nice little talk with the entire team. Being that leader, being that guy. It's there's a lot of talk of why they named him captain this week particularly, but it's just kind of happened that way. No trolling behind it, but there's no doubt that he is one of the leaders of this football team, and what he's been able to do this season after the way last year ended has been nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that like his season didn't go as great as we all kind of thought it would be, but he still had a great season. There's no doubt about it. But we all thought at the beginning of the year that he was going to have defensive player of the year, and at the beginning of the season, it looked like he was well on his way. And then, of course, COVID put a hamper on it, but he still had 12 sacks. He still had 4 or 5 forced fumbles. I mean, he's still one of the top defensive players in the league. But yeah, he is definitely the leader of that defensive side of the ball, and they go as far as he pushes them. And to see his production equate to Olivier Vernon finally showing up and having a productive season. Sheldon Richardson was making impact plays, and then you go to the back, and Sione Takitaki, Denzel Ward, Ronnie Harrison, Terrence Mitchell. I mean, there is some guys on that defense, and yes, they need more, and we'll talk about that in the offseason for sure. But to have Myles Garrett on that side of the ball, leading that defense, it's one of the great things about this Browns team is that there's leaders on both sides of the ball. They pick these guys up when there's trouble. They rally together and they fight for each other, and it's awesome. And it's awesome to see finally the fruits of being the worst franchise for a few years finally paying off, to see guys like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward, who were top draft picks, being able to lead the Browns to a playoff appearance. And hopefully Ward's back next week. Obviously he was out today because of COVID-19. The 10-day window would lift on Sunday, so banking on the Browns playing on Sunday against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, how much would that stink? The Browns get selected to play on Saturday instead of Sunday. Hopefully, they'll be able to play on Saturday instead of Sunday, so Denzel can potentially play because they're going to need him. Look, I know Mason Rudolph kind of just chucked things up there this week when throwing to the receivers, but this secondary really needs Denzel. And we'll talk about the offseason at a different time, but this secondary still needs some help back there. And they weren't going to fix everything in 1 year, but they're going to have to go out this offseason and help out the secondary a little bit more. But hopefully they can get a boost back this week with him because they're going to need him. They're going to need Denzel for the playoffs. So hopefully they end up playing on next Sunday. Next weekend should be really fun. We got the Browns playoff game. We got the Buckeyes playing for a national championship game on Monday against Alabama. Next weekend's going to be one of the better football weekends for Ohio. It's been a while since we've had one of those. The last time the Browns made the playoffs, the Buckeyes were also playing for a national championship. So there's also that aspect too, and they won it. So hopefully the Browns would. I wouldn't mind like trading the reverse, right? I wouldn't mind like the Buckeyes losing if it meant the Browns win the playoff game next Sunday. I wouldn't mind trading that this time, but it's going to be an exciting week for football in Ohio. And look, Jack, I still feel like I lost for words. We've been talking on this podcast for 25 minutes already. It's just such a incredible feeling, and we're on such an emotional high right now because the Browns make the playoffs. And you talked about how Baker said that this is the new standard, and I hope so. I hope we never go back to what we've had to endure over the last 4 years on this podcast, because what a time to start one, right? We start this podcast, Browns go 0-16, and it was like, why even bother, right? So, you know, I guess that we're all emotional because we deserve this. The best fans in the world deserve what has happened to this football team this year, and it's a shame that that stadium couldn't be packed today and be packed the rest of the season because these fans that are part of the dog pound all over the world certainly deserve it.
For sure, man. I mean, it does suck that fans couldn't be a part of. Well, the stadium couldn't be full. I feel for all the season ticket holders that couldn't go to the game, much like yourself, Anthony. But for everybody that's a Browns fan, whether you're in the United States, whether you're over in London, shout out to our boys Paul and Jack. Worldwide, Browns fans, we are the world's team, and we're finally going to the playoffs. What a time to be alive.
And you know what, too? I bet you have majority of America pulling for us next week. I kind of have that feeling. You kind of mentioned us being a world team, but I have a feeling I've seen so much reaction on social media already that from people that are not from Cleveland, so happy for the Browns and Browns fans, and I just have a feeling that you're gonna see a lot of people pulling for us next weekend in the playoffs.
Yeah, because who likes those bastards in the city that smells? I mean, let's be honest.
Waving those stinky towels, right? Um, so it's going to be a fun week. I know that you and I are going to do the best we can to enjoy this week. Be on this podcast and talk about things. I'm sure we'll line quite a bit up for y'all to listen to us. Jack, is there anything more you want to say before we kind of get on out of here?
Just go Browns. We
Yeah,
back, baby.
yeah, we're definitely back, and it's great to be in the postseason. We're all so excited, and look, it's been a long time coming, right? And um, the fact that this team was able to make the playoffs, go 11-5. Um, have the success that they've had this year. It's just been a real fun ride with this team. Especially after the letdown last year, after the hype building up a little bit too much, but to come in this season with new head coach. Taking a giant step with the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. It's been a real fun ride, and look, it's gonna continue one extra week. For the first time in 18 years, the Cleveland Browns will have a Week 18, um, and it's very exciting. As we get on out of here, as always, be sure to give Jack a follow on Twitter at Jack McCurry08. Give me a follow at Anthony Joki JKI, the podcast at the Dogland. Um, with all that, we're going to get on out of here. We'll be back to talk more about the Browns and the playoffs this week, and most importantly, and most especially, going to leave you with this: Go Browns!